If you are noticing some of these changes in your life, either in the external or the internal, it's a huge sign that you are starting to go through the awakening process and even moving quite rapidly along that path. So in this video, I want to go over 5 changes that typically start occurring as you start awakening, as you start getting into that place where your awareness is rising and your consciousness is rising. So that's coming up next. Now, before we jump into it, my name is Dave and this is HeartSpace. If you're new to the channel, where I am creating videos every single day to help you along your heart path. Now, something that's going to immediately help you to do that is to get my free course down below that can help you invite synchronicities, positive confirmations, miracles into your life, sometimes in as little as 3 days. It is a full-blown video course for free of paid quality, but you can get it for free down below in the description. Now, again, today we're going over some of the changes that you may start noticing, which really indicate that you're starting to wake up more fully. Now, again, use this with your own discernment and only take on board that which resonates with you, or that's what I would invite you to do. But if it does resonate with you from your heart, that's usually an indicator, usually a sign that whatever I'm talking about in that moment when that happens does apply to you. So here are some of the changes, again, that you can expect as you start waking up. It's not all of them, and there are other things that can happen, but these are some of the things you will start to notice most likely when change is occurring. That means you are waking up more fully. So let's jump into it, starting with number 5. So in reverse order, let's go. Now, number 5 is that old patterns, old stories, old habits are dropping like flies in order to make room for the new. Now, sometimes they're dropping like flies, and some people will be at a point where they're so far along in the process that they're allowing them to be dropped without much resistance. For others, when this is fairly new or they're used to holding on to a lot of resistance, they might be really trying not to have these patterns or old stories or old paradigms or whatever else drop. But it seems like time and time again, you're being brought to this place where you're really being encouraged to drop them. And this is again because you are starting to wake up. When you start to wake up and increase your awareness and increase your consciousness, old patterns, old stories, and old habits no longer make sense, because you can see through the illusion for where that pattern or that story or that habit or whatever else made sense and was actually useful. But when you see through that illusion, when you raise your consciousness, when you realize maybe something wasn't as important as you once thought, the corresponding story or habit or belief system no longer has a place in your life, and you're either going to be encouraged to move beyond it, to drop it, or perhaps you're already again dropping these habits, these old belief systems, these old patterns, like they're dropping like flies in your life. And this is because it's making room for the new. It's making room for higher conscious patterns and beliefs and stories. It's making room for different habits that are going to serve you at a higher level. But in order for that to happen, you have to let go and release the old things that are taking up that space. In fact, if that resonates with you, I would invite you to put in the comments, I am releasing the old and allowing in the new, or you can say, and allowing in the light. I've mentioned this in another video about waking up. I think it's such a powerful statement. I am releasing the old. I am releasing that which does not serve me in my highest, and I am allowing in the love, allowing in the light, allowing in the new that the universe is trying to bring through. Now, number 4 is you see through the matrix, the illusion, with absolute ease. I mean, it's not even funny how easily you can see through things that are coming through the mainstream, and even though it might hoodwink or hypnotize certain people, you see through it and go, this is very obvious to me. And especially you will know this if it's something that maybe you would have been hoodwinked into in the past, but now you look at it and go like, how was I ever fooled into believing this? How was I ever fooled into going along with this? How did I live within this matrix before? Because now it's become so obvious. And the reason anyone gets drawn into the matrix is simply a lack of awareness. But as you start awakening, your awareness expands, it improves to see beyond the scope of what we call the matrix, the illusion, the brainwashing, the conditioning, whatever else it is. And now you have a higher level of discernment coming from a higher level of consciousness. And so now you're noticing, hey, this programming doesn't make any sense to me and I have no pull to actually following it. Or hey, this belief system or lack of love they're trying to condition me into, I'm not being pulled to. Or hey, this fear-based agenda they're trying to like perpetuate on humanity and myself, I just see right through it. I see what they're doing. That is a huge change. If you've noticed that shift where you're just seeing through these things, it is, in my eyes, a surefire way of telling that you have awakened to a certain extent. Because when you see kind of the ridiculousness, I would just just call it, of some of these things, almost like to a humorous level, like again, how did I ever believe this? Well, it's because we believe the conditioning over that which we actually are. It's kind of the point of the conditioning, keeping us away from discovering that where we come from, that which we actually are, that what we're connected to. Because when we realize that, we realize the illusion of these mainstream things, the Matrix and so on. So if this video is resonating with you so far, or you've gotten something out of it so far, I would invite you to hit the like button. That simply helps the video to spread and reach more heart-centered people, or more people that could get a lot of help out of viewing this video. So I would really appreciate that. Anyway, let's move on to number 3. And number 3 is you now understand the process and also the divinity and the perfection of the process at a much higher level. And you can see this playing out in your life. You know, a lot of people, again, will bemoan their life. They'll be in resistance to certain things, but it's because they don't understand how the process of life works. And when you understand the process, when you awaken to a certain point, you get to see how that everything is happening in divine timing. Everything is unfolding for a reason, that the universe isn't redundant, and that all of these things are unfolding for you. Even the things that you perceive as bad, even the things that you maybe once resisted, you actually see the perfection of those things. You know, I can look back in my life at things that in the moment I was like, this is awful, you know, nothing worse could happen to me, and I would play the victim. But looking back, connecting the dots, looking backwards, I could see the incredibly valuable lessons I learned, the experiences I needed to have to help shape me into the person that I am today, to help me expand my awareness into the awarenesses that I have today. I wouldn't be standing here talking to you if it wasn't for those experiences. And so although my present time version of myself at that time would have been in a lot of resistance towards it, as I expanded my awareness, I see the perfection in the process of which I went through. So things like being homeless, being broke, all those kinds of things, I see why it was, because I understand the process that I was in that situation. Life was trying to show me something. Life was trying to get my attention. And there are many other things that can be used for, but it's always intentional. There's always a purpose, something behind it. There's always a revealing and unfolding behind things like that. And as you start awakening, you start expanding your awareness, you start seeing that process playing out in your own life, and you stop resisting it. You start seeing the perfection of it, and you start co-creating in harmony with it. Now, number 2 is you are much more drawn, much more pulled, much more attracted to growth-centric content, people, environments, just growth-centric things in general. You start investing your finances, your time, your energy more into things that have to do with that. You start really vibrating at a higher level yourself, and then drawn to things on that same frequency. So for example, there's a reason you're probably watching this. There's a reason you're probably this deep into the video, because there's something about it that resonates with you. There's something that drew you to it, wherever you are on that awakening process. I'm only a little bit on the scale of being able to speak properly, so that's why you hear me fumbling over my words. But on the awakening process, I've done a bit of work, so I have a little more awareness on that scale. But that's why you're drawn to videos like this. That's why more of this stuff comes up. That's why you are drawn to taking actions from a heart-based place. That might be why you're drawn to investing your finances in different places that actually support your growth, or perhaps your time in places that actually support your growth, or your energy, or all three, ideally, because you are starting to vibrate at that level. You are starting to understand the importance of being growth-centric, that is actually what our soul is doing here for a lot of it, and that you're starting to understand that process of how that works. You are continually aiming to expand, to reconnect to that which you actually are, not just through your beliefs, not just through your words, but also through your actions. And if you find yourself being drawn to those kind of things, it is a sign that you have started to, again, wake up more fully. You're starting to go down that process even more. Now, one thing I would like to mention, because it is a stumbling block for a lot of people, is it's not just about feeling that, it's not just about thinking that, it's also taking action from that. One of my favorite quotes from my mentor is, actions express priorities. And so when you're taking action from that new level of vibration, that's when you start taking quantum leaps in your awakening, in surrounding yourself with like people, in changing your environments to ones that are more coherent with your growth, etc., etc. I actually have a free trial going on for my monthly membership group, which really has all of that, which I just mentioned. It's a 3-day free trial. You can check it out down below. It's called Heart Path, and that's going to be the perfect place if you were called to doing it to, again, invest in your growth and be in a community of like-hearted people moving in that awakening same direction down their heart paths, moving in alignment with that and congruency with that. And it's a great tribe of people for you to be involved with if that's something you are interested in. So you can check that out and get the free trial down below. Now let's move on to the final one. And number one is you have stopped for the most part, or at least you are doing this more, trying to force outcomes, and you now allow much more in your life. And this goes back to understanding the process. People who are trying to force things usually don't have much of a know-how of the process, or even if they're aware of it, they don't have much practice in implementing it. That's why actions express priorities. It's not just about knowing something. Another quote that I really love is, knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. There is power in applied wisdom, applied knowledge. There is no results, no power, no change or anything like that in just sitting on knowledge, being like, oh, this feels good to my head and my information brain and my ego, without taking action. And so just keep that in mind. Knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. But when you understand the process and you actually start taking action from that place, you will learn through experience, and also, again, that wisdom applied, that powerful application of the awareness and knowledge. You'll start learning how the process of life works, and that forcing things never ever brings you closer to what you are. Resistance to things that will help you in your growth, or resistance to things that are in your heart, are just going to move you further away. While when you take leaps of faith, while you actually do things and take actions from your heart, things you're being pulled to, things that your awareness have brought to you, and you move in that direction, amazing things start to change and unfold. And this is when quantum leaps start to happen. Your growth starts expanding rapidly. This is when the magic of life truly starts to come in, because you're removing the resistance and just allowing. Essentially, you start focusing on shining your light and being a force, or not a force, but a power, I will say, of good. You know, it's the analogy of the lighthouse versus the tugboat. The lighthouse doesn't go out and bring people in that way. It attracts people through the light. Some people will shy away from that light because they're not ready. Some people will embrace that light. And the more you understand the process, the more you take action from that heart-based place, the more you invest your time, energy, finances into things that help you grow in that area, the more you shine, the more you expand, the more you invite in at a very high level, instead of forcing, going around trying to make people do things, telling people this is better or worse. That's, again, not contextual, just black or white thinking. You know, these kinds of things do not support you in your growth. And it's also a sign of a lack of awareness when you try and force these different things, or a lack of waking up because you don't really understand the process, or you are trying to, in a way, force the process and don't have too much experience in actually applying it. And so aiming for those powerful decisions from the heart is going to expand so much from you. And you can always really tell when you're forcing and when you're allowing the power that you are to come through you, versus trying to make life work by you, you know, almost like fighting against life. And if you choose the action of moving through you more, or having life move through you, you're connecting to that which you are, taking action from that place, you're just going to find, again, those quantum leaps are going to occur much more. And if you find you're being drawn to that, again, that is a kind of change when you go from forcing to allowing, when you go from what we call by me, which is more like trying to fight against life, life happens by me but not working with life, to through me, where you're working cooperatively with life working through you. When you start making that shift, that change, that is not only a huge sign that you have woken up to a massive degree, especially if you're living more in that way, but it's also an indicator that a lot of the magic of life is going to start coming to you, or is already with you. It's going to allow for a lot of changes in every area of your life, because now you're suddenly in flow with the process. You're cooperating, you're in coordination, you're in harmony and coherence with it. So those are some of the things that are going to begin to shift and change as you start awakening. Now, if you want to know 10 more things that usually happen as you start fully awakening and you're really going on that journey, I would check out this video next, where I go over 10 signs that you're fully awake or going through that process. And if you're noticing these things, keep doing what you're doing, keep tuning into that, because again, it's a huge indicator that you're moving along that path of awakening, if that's what you wish to do. So I'll see you over there.